Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you felt like you had to withhold your opinions to fit in with a particular group? Have you ever felt compelled to take an action that you felt uncomfortable with, only because of pressure from your peers? Or have you seen someone else go through the same? Then stay tuned, as this podcast will help you recognize what peer pressure is and how it can affect behavior and life choices. It will also give insight into how peer pressure can be managed to yield overall positive results. Hello, and welcome to the podcast The Power of Influence, Understanding and Managing Peer Pressure. I am Dr. Prerna Kohli, a clinical psychologist and the founder of Mind Tribe. At Mind Tribe, we provide affordable counseling, support groups, communities, workshops, and e-learning for improving your mental health. Take a minute and think about the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the phrase peer pressure. Now, it is possible that you imagined a scene of an unwilling teenager drinking to impress friends. Or perhaps a scene wherein a teenager is engaging in risky driving simply because they're being persuaded by their peer. When we hear the words peer pressure, we often picture scenarios that are inherently negative. We also habitually relate this phrase with children and adolescents being pressured to fit in or appear cool. While that is a major aspect of the concept, there is so much more to it. Let's start with understanding the basic crux of the topic. Now, peer pressure is a term we have been hearing for ages, and we all can understand it as that feeling you get when you feel like you need to change who you are to fit in with a certain group of people. Basically, it's the pressure we feel to conform to the expectations of our social group, whether that's changing our beliefs, values, or even our behaviors. If we take a good look around us, we will notice that the innate human need for belonging and the desperation of wanting to be accepted by others make us all vulnerable to peer pressure, even in the subtlest of ways. That is why we can't say that it's something that only children and teenagers go through. It is something that impacts other age groups as well. Just as much as a child wants to be accepted by their peers, an adult also wants to be accepted and appreciated by society. Our peers and the people we are surrounded with have a significant influence on our lives and personalities, even if we don't actively realize it. If you think hard enough, you'll realize that we often pick up their habits and traits as we spend time with them, like using the same slangs, watching the same TV shows, or wearing similar clothing. But here's the thing, that's not necessarily an issue. In fact, it can be really fun to have friends who share similar interests and hobbies. The issue arises when we start feeling like we have to change and do things that are not in line with our morality just for peer acceptance. And as you may know already, this pressure can either feel subtle and indirect or forceful and debilitating. Subtle peer pressure can be seen in day-to-day examples, like feeling pushed to be in a relationship or engage in sexual activity to fit in with the norm, or perhaps feeling pressured to spend more money and own more expensive possessions just to match the status of the peers. You may have experienced such situations in your life as well, like not submitting your homework on time just because your friends aren't either. Or maybe you have felt that you were faintly pressured into having an expensive phone that you didn't really need, just because your peers looked down on those who didn't have one. On the other hand, when we talk about the forceful forms, it feels extremely intense and stressful. This is more in line with the peer pressure we often talk about. For instance, here I'd bring up the age-old examples of being pressured to try drugs or alcohol, engage in risky behaviors like rash driving, or engage in other negative activities like shoplifting or bullying. And I believe you can agree with me when I say, largely peer pressure creates a sense of internal conflict within us, and we end up feeling torn between the desire to fit in and the desire to stay true to our own values and beliefs. Now, having said that, it's important to realize that peer pressure isn't all that bad in every case. While it is, in general, viewed solely with a negative connotation, it can also have positive impacts. Think about it. If peer pressure will be positive, it will push us to be our best and motivate us to achieve our goals. Look at it practically too. It's seen very often that people inculcate good habits or values after observing them from their peers. Like, if we see our friends doing well in some aspect of their life, like their career or their education, we feel a push of motivation to do the same. Or if we are in a friend group wherein exercising is sort of a bonding point, it is highly likely that we will pick it up and give it a try. And the best part is that this positive pressure extends a helping hand in learning new things, not only about others but also about ourselves. You can see this play out in your own life. Like when we meet new people, we come across a fresh set of opinions and values, out of which we may learn from a few and inculcate them in our belief system. And that is why, in order to live a satisfying life, we should try to maximize the impact of positive peer pressure and minimize the hold the negative side has on us. This brings me to a very essential topic of discussion, and that is, how can one deal with the detrimental effects of peer pressure? Now, the very first step in dealing with anything is recognizing that you are going through it. Once you become aware that you're a victim of negative peer pressure and conformity, you'll be more likely to adopt strategies to deal with it. Sit and introspect for a bit. If you feel that a particular behavior brings about unpleasant emotions and is something you would not engage in if your peers didn't push you to, then that is a telltale sign that you're being peer pressured. Once you have recognized your situation, the next step to take up is always communication. Communicating with your peers and letting them know that you feel uncomfortable is very crucial, even if it leaves you feeling awkward. The good news is that if you have a supportive and good peer group, they will not make you feel small or invalidated for speaking up about your discomfort. A solid peer group will respect you and your feelings no matter what, and that is exactly how people with differing values and beliefs coexist within the same group. If your peers do not respect you, then you know that you have to distance yourself from them. And it is not just this. In order to effectively deal with such demanding situations, you must learn to be more assertive and stand up for what feels right to you. And that is why building confidence in your own ideas and understanding your worth becomes very important. While it's easier said than done, increasing your self-esteem can really make all the difference. There are lots of great resources out there to help you do just that, from self-help books and podcasts to videos and articles. I also have recently talked about dealing with low self-esteem in a podcast. The link to the podcast is in the description, so be sure to check it out if you're feeling overwhelmed and are struggling to find your confidence. Also, have you ever noticed that when it comes to dealing with peer pressure, very often parents, family members, and other trusted adults play a really big role? I mean, not only do they help shape our values, but they can also boost our self-confidence, help us be more assertive, and provide emotional support when we need it most. So, if you're ever in a tough spot and need advice or guidance, don't be afraid to reach out to someone you trust. It could be a parent, grandparent, aunt, uncle, teacher, anyone who has your best interests at heart. Chances are, they've been there before and can help you navigate whatever challenge you're facing. And if you are the trusted adult in someone else's life, it's important to communicate openly and without judgment. That way, they'll feel comfortable coming to you with their problems and you can provide the support and guidance they need. And finally, as individuals, we must try to surround ourselves with positive influences, people who share and/or respect our values and beliefs, and those who support us in making good decisions. If nothing is working for you, then try talking to a counselor. A counselor will be able to help you strategize effectively according to your specific needs and situation. You may get in touch with one of the trained counselors here at Mind Tribe to help you through your concerns. All in all, it is essential to understand that the journey of overcoming negative peer pressure is one filled with many obstacles and is not an easy feat. But don't let that discourage you. Peer pressure is something everyone has faced, and you are not alone in this fix. Just keep in mind what I have talked about today and slowly but surely work on yourself while also relying on those you trust. I wish you all the best. And now, as fun as this was, it's time to wrap up. I hope this podcast helped you gain a deeper understanding on the topic. Thank you for tuning in and take care.